But most importantly, when it comes to these optional relationships, where I can actively go out there and forge a relationship, I even have so much power because I can actually walk out of it. Why? Because you also need to guard jealously your sanity and your mental health. That's why a number of people were in depression because of certain people in our lives. A number of people right now, they're taking BP meds because of the relationships that they got themselves in.
Imagine.
A number of people right now, they're visiting my counselors and even psychiatrists just to deal with the trauma caused by someone who once said, I love you. So we need to be very careful about the people who are saying yes into our lives. Because the moment we say yes, we're actually saying no to certain things. And that's why it becomes very important. So what are some of the signs for a toxic relationship? Usually, there are relationships where it's all take, no give. The other party is not moving, they're not doing anything. So you realize even during with sacrifices. The other party don't compare the level of your sacrifices. No, you should do more, you can do more, you can do better. So if you're in a setup where you're being constantly compared with someone, leave. I know that my ex was better. The moment I got over Romeo, that's a sign. See ya. Don't.
In the studio is an attorney, best-selling author, human capital trainer, a business speaker, thought leader, law lecturer, consultant, and coach. Joe Baba,
I'm not in that context.
Advocate. Good morning.
We can leave ago.
Moshe.
Looking exotic, eh?
Thank you. You're looking good.
No, thank you. Try again, Baba.
So let's get into it. Toxic relationships.
Sure. So I think a number of people were actually in these setups, and I think it's very important for us to talk about relationships. Because life revolves around relationships. Be it romantic, be it business, be it social, whatever. So I think it becomes very important for us to focus on the quality of relationships. I was trying to research the word toxic. Apparently it is derived from a Latin word that means poisoned arrows. So if something is toxic, it's actually poisonous. And a number of people that are in relationships that are poisonous. And this is the point that I want to stress. Number one, it's possible to be in a toxic relationship and you not know of it. So a number of people are actually in toxic relationships that they don't actually know that they are actually in toxic relationships. And number two, it's actually possible to be toxic in a relationship.
To be the toxic one.
Yes. So it's actually possible to be toxic and you don't know it. And there's nothing as scary as a person who is toxic but they don't know it. Because they're actually saying, who is the problem? They're actually looking for the problem when they're actually the problem. And there are a number of people who are actually there. And there are quite a number who are actually in some of these setups, but they're in denial. They're refusing to confront. But I'm actually in a toxic setup. I'm in a toxic relationship. And pretty much what I want to engage is, number one, how do you identify a toxic relationship? And secondly, what is actually a toxic relationship? And thirdly, how do you actually get out of a toxic relationship? Then toxicity can be found in a number of things. Number one, in a relationship which is romantic. Right now, not toxic. Share bed now. But once you send a message, hi babe, hi sweetie, yet they're toxic. A number of people, they're in toxic business relationships. Business partner, but who deep down are toxic. We're not going anywhere. A number of people, they're also coming from toxic workplaces. Apana chintu rwadza section namunhu ari toxic. Also wakama employer, wakasvika aripo, and the next thing autoratidza kuti anga atoripo for quite a number of years. Ana warwina mune. Yeah. And that's not easy. And there are also toxic churches.
A business speaker,
leader. So with a toxic church, you actually come back worse than what you were when you went. I saw last time you actually come back worse. And there are also toxic preachers, by the way. So it's very important to be able to identify the source of toxicity, because getting out of it is determined by an understanding of where this is actually coming from. Because once you know where it's coming from, it also means you get to a position where you can actually cut it off. And there are also toxic Facebook pages. Do you know it simply took one person to just say they haven't verified anything. The next thing they just throw in the name. And right now in Zimbabwe, we're so full of people who are so vile, very angry and violent. They don't even take time to actually verify. And scaringly, do you know how many Zimbabweans, millions of us, were so attached to toxic setups? Whereby, you know, and they're just rushing there. Guys, ukaona uchiwana pleasure in someone's misery, anokwana. If you find joy in someone being embarrassed, you're toxic. If you find joy in someone's pain, you're toxic. You need help. And this is the level that we find ourselves in. So what is a toxic relationship? What characterizes a toxic relationship? So ordinarily, a healthy relationship, Vikendi, is one that makes you feel secure. And a number of people who are in relationships who every time were very insecure. That's why it's a waste of time to be in an insecure setup, because as number periods are not dealing with that. Then in a healthy setup, you find yourself, you're actually happy. I think once did a conversation about how to stay happy. It's very important. You find yourself you're being cared for, and you are actually respected and free to be yourself. A number of people were in setups where we're being made to feel insecure about ourselves, where we're coming, insecure about your bodies. That's why never date someone who makes you feel insecure about who you are. Always find the person who finds perfection and celebrates your weaknesses and celebrates your shortcomings, because there's no one who is perfect. No one. That's why it's a waste of time to preach perfection. We need to be able to celebrate ourselves even in our own weaknesses. It does actually helps us. But when you're in a toxic relationship, one of the things that happens is you're constantly feeling drained. Motivation is no pera. Let's do lunch, energy, because they are constantly draining you. You feel depleted and sometimes even distraught. And this is the reason why we need to be very, very careful about the relationships that we're keeping. And I want us to notice one thing. There are two types of relationships. There are relationships that are optional, and there are relationships that are by default. By default, these are your family. You don't choose your family. So, it's not necessarily equal. These are the relationships that you forge as an individual. Because I can't change my family, but I can just learn how to manage them. And once I understood how to manage them, it simply means I need to understand the nature and the character of the person that I'm dealing with. Then I also need to craft the adequate responses. Even go to a prayer band, say, no, Father, change that person. No, where you need to walk out. So a number of us, we make the problem, we think we can negotiate toxicity. You can't.
Yeah.
Once you've identified toxicity, that's a red flag. Be bold enough to walk up in setups that no longer serve you. Alternatively, walk away from setups that threaten your peace of mind. One of the most important things that you need in your life is peace of mind. You can't be creative, when you don't have peace of mind. That's why the people you keep around, they are very, very important. So, right now, every time you think a person, we need a toxic setup. Because I don't have time to celebrate. You have no time to be happy. You have no time to be yourself. You don't even have time to sleep.
You've given the person too much power.
They're controlling you.
They're controlling you, your happiness, your moods. And how do you progress in that space?
And see, this is exactly what many people need to do. Begin to take back the power.
Please.
Begin to recover the power. You see, I don't know who told people that it's bad to be alone. So it's not bad to be alone. What's bad is loneliness.
Yes.
So loneliness, I solve with someone in your life.
The wrong person.
A number of us were in wrong relationships because of loneliness. Because you just want someone who says, hey, hi. Because I chat away to my hey, what I say, what's alpha, what's someone, what I want to replace. The matter, guys, learn to protect your sanity. Learn to guard jealously your peace of mind. And most importantly, don't lose yourself trying to be what you're not. So a number of people were constantly losing ourselves, just trying to please people. Why? Because we're in toxic setups. Another characteristics, you're constantly feeling drained. I think we talked about this. You see, my energy boosters, put my energy sucker. An energy sucker, weekend, just one message is enough to finish your day. One message, at 5 a.m. I will send also not better. It's not better. Wow. There's a hope. It's not better. Wow. No, but we need to be very careful. Are you not in setups where you're constantly losing all the energy, all the happiness, all the productivity that you used to experience is constantly disappearing because of the people that you're keeping? You see, your life gets better the moment you add certain people and subtract certain people. And that's when you realize that it's not everyone that you actually need. One, they're okay, but the people even decide to say they're going to be close. Ngawe vanhu who add value to you. You see, apana chino rwadza say kuti people who are toxic, there are people who actually look up to. That's why you need to be careful about toxic mentors. So you need to be very careful. Because some of the advice that you're not supposed to doesn't make sense.
You have to sift.
Sift.
Like, ah!
So everything. So we need to be very careful about that.
Got a message here, Arthur, saying some of us are in marriages and always being compared to exes and other women. You know, Wadza and BP no gara yakakwira. So what you're saying, these effects on the ground, it's happening in a number of lives, and it's sad. It is.
You see, one of the things when you decide to get married, you're not marrying someone because they're the most beautiful person. So for one, you better. Where's the Aurora? Negaroro. Roma was the most handsome. So you better. I didn't handsome in your world, you will. But when you go back, yeah, you begin to see, that's why yes, I do to someone. Which I do. Usually meeting them in your life. I do, but so the point is, when you say you love someone you want to spend the rest of your life with, it's not because they're the most beautiful, it's because you respect them. That's why when you respect a person, my experiences which you can call even defining. Learn to keep certain things to yourself. Because some of these things you say, it will permanently destroy someone. That's why they often say people will forget what you said, but they never forget what you make them feel. And that's why you need to be very sensitive, especially if you're in a relationship. But most importantly, I wonder they actually need training on what to say when they're angry. And the best thing to say when you're angry is nothing. Buddha oxygen, then one normal was sober, guess what? That's the best time to sell a stock. Because a number of times, but we're also now permanently destroying some of these things. So that's toxicity level, which is why I was saying a number of people, they can actually be toxic and they don't know it. And that's why I'm saying the role of everyone is not to be toxic. Be a better person. So one of the things that I find in toxic setup is lack of trust. You have no business being in a relationship with that person.
Yes.
WhatsApp web. Application oh, Brian. Okay, that's what I say, Brian. Nice. I'll try to airtime. But we're in a relationship. We're for no food. You're in a wrong relationship. You are in a wrong relationship.
You don't police a person.
You don't. Moon in adults. I don't go to police. So, a number of times, my arrangements I got constantly being told, that's what I need. Guys, I'm quoting. Do you know what I said around Bobins on court? So, watch the Runya. There's no protest for Nicolas to see a going at it, watch the run, but as a box send 2 hours to respond a message. And so, those are toxic setups. Then, if you ever notice, many people are actually in hostile atmospheres constantly, where every time someone is constantly angry. You every day,
yeah.
Also, I'm telling you, say, but every day, I go tangwa. I got when they're happy, you don't know. When they're angry, you don't know. When you do right, you don't know. When you do wrong, you don't know. Someone who know me say, you know what I'm saying? Communicate, which is one of the things that we need to always be picking. My toxic relationships are not communication. You know, a partner when we're saying my problems, we always have problems. But the most important thing is to master the art of communication. How do we communicate? Okay, we've got a problem. Let's communicate. But who wants to they don't communicate. So we need to be able to watch out. There's actually quite a number of these. I'll post this on my social media platforms. We actually need to be very careful to identify these things so that we don't lose ourselves. I know right now of many people who used to be very energetic, used to have exciting dreams, but all those things they lost the moment they got into a relationship with someone. Better my dreams, ability to say dreamer. I'm just going to be a mother. But you wanted to do your masters. Don't lower your spouse's self-esteem so that they can just feel good. And this is the case with a number of people. They always want to see you as a supper so that they can feel normal. ukadauza munhu todaita degree todaita chinzi program ida haikutendedzi kudaro toda kutombofocusa neizvizvi munhu anoisa kuplanira life yako asitorina the full picture of your life. So let's be very careful in terms of identifying these things, and most importantly, be proactive when it comes to defending your space and identifying what keeps you sane. Because a number of people right now, they are being driven into some very, very terrible medical conditions because of the relationships that are giving. And it's not too fair early just because of people. You won't go to the healthy, you won't go to the right. But there's good thing about relationships. When you can change the people in your life, realize you can actually change the people in your life. In other words, what otherwise change? You don't change in terms of replacing them. Put better people. And learn to give your finest time, finest priorities, finest energy to people who give you finest results. You know, if I've got lunch with the weekend, I'm actually going to be energized for just 1 hour. Do more of those. And stay away from more and more of these setups where your energy is constantly being drained, where you're being constantly reminded that you are not the best. Right now, do you know right now, if you're listening, please repent. Constantly affirm your spouse. Constantly affirm the people in your life. Sometimes we can simply need someone who tells you you're looking good. It's very important. And sometimes the people who should do that, these are the people who are in our circle. These are the people who are in our lives. Sometimes these are the people who wake up to every day. They need to master that. They need to learn that. So in as much as I can affirm myself, guess what? We also need people who can do that. And it means we need to have an introspection, a 360-degree check into our lives. Am I solving a problem, or am I actually a problem? So my challenge to everybody, don't be toxic. Be a blessing.
Absolutely love that. You were going to come up with ways on how a person can leave a toxic relationship.
Number one.
A time.
It's not time. We'll finish it off.
Because people need to know how do I escape
true.
that.
No, let's actually finish it
toxicity.
off. I think that's around 1 minute. So actually, I think we can actually do a bit of that. But one of the things is to actually cut off communication. Gradually cut off communication.
Yes.
In any and that time in a negative energy. If you're negative, I don't respond. Well, I said Mrs. Nabasa, and I go not to cross our boundaries. I block. I don't like blocking people. They know about 1 or 2, 3 when I block. Why? You know what? I can't tolerate this nonsense. If there's anything that I value, weekend is my peace of mind. If you want to take away my peace of mind, don't think I'm going to argue with you. I only argue when I'm being paid. I'm a lawyer by training. But this is not value. I cut off communication. So learn to cut off communication. As usazopa number zako weekend. Ipa one very serious number zako. So that it's not batsana ku improve. You get what I'm saying? Yes. Then you also need to actually work on your tell me next time.
Yes, Advocate Arthur, how can people get in touch with you?
I'm on WhatsApp 078 0055 152 078 0055 152. I'm on social media as well. Let's link up.